The moment Ethan Carter's trembling fingers brushed the leather-bound spine, a low groan echoed beneath the floorboards, as if the house itself recognized the secret it had long kept. Dust motes danced in the pale morning light, slanting through the tiny basement window, illuminating Claire's name, embossed in gold, on the cover. He froze, heart hammering against his ribs, memories rushing in all at once. Her laughter beside the sea, the softness of her hand in his, the quiet warmth of shared afternoons lost to time. Ethan swallowed hard, lifting the journal like a fragile relic. He'd returned to this house seeking closure, a final act of mourning after 18 years of marriage and a year of endless, hollow days. Instead, he found an invitation and a warning in every crease of that leather. Born and raised in a salt-wind town on Maine's rocky coast, Ethan wears solitude like a second skin. At 42, his dark hair is flecked with premature gray, and his eyes, once bright with the thrill of Shakespeare and sonnets, now hold a distant glaze, as though he's perpetually reading a story he can't finish. He spent his life teaching literature at the local college, where he guided eager minds through the labyrinths of metaphor and the power of words. In his classroom, he was gentle, patient, offering the comfort of a story well told. Outside it, he retreated into silence, stepping cautiously around the world, afraid that each joyful moment might shatter, much like the fragile pages of this hidden journal. Since Claire's death, Ethan has drifted through days in a state of suspended grief, unable to move forward, yet too afraid to turn back. His old home, perched on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, has grown both too big and too small, each creaking floorboard a reminder of a life once full. And now, with this journal in hand, he's about to learn that the woman he thought he knew, the woman he still loves, may have kept secrets powerful enough to rewrite everything he believed about their past. The first lines of Claire's handwriting were neat, almost joyous, each letter curved like a wave cresting on the shore. April 3rd, he read, "I never told Ethan about the dream last night." His pulse quickened. A dream? What could she have feared so much that it stayed unwritten until now? He sank onto a dusty trunk, the journal heavy on his knees. The basement's stale air pressed against his lungs. Outside, gulls cried, and waves slapped stubbornly at the rocks below, unchanged, eternal. But in his hands, Claire's words formed a living thing, one that might undo him. Turning the page, Ethan scanned her words. She described a house he'd never seen, tall windows flung wide, light pouring in like forgiveness, and a figure standing on the threshold with an envelope clutched in trembling fingers. "When he reads this," she wrote, "everything will make sense." He remembered no such dream, and yet the clarity in her tone made him shiver. She believed it mattered. Claire, with her steady calm and warm smile, had always been the anchor in his drifting life. He'd never questioned her silences, chalking them up to her private nature. But here, in lines inked months before her death, he sensed a rift between them, one he'd never perceived. "May 12th, the next entry began, "I'm terrified of the thing I've done." The sentence trembled across the paper. His throat tightened. Done? What could she have done that warranted such fear? Flashbacks flickered. Claire's late-night absences, the curt phone calls he dismissed as work emergencies, the sudden hush that fell over her when he asked too many questions. He'd loved her fiercely, but seen only what she let him see. Now these confessions felt like tremors before an earthquake, each word promising ruin. A thin beam of light caught on a smudge of ink. Something crossed out. Ethan leaned closer. The scrawl beneath was indecipherable. He reached out to lift the light, but the flick of his fingers sent the candle flame dancing. Shadows lunged at the walls, and he realized with a hollow thud that he was on the edge of a revelation, one that could either redeem Claire's memory or crush him under its weight. He inhaled, bracing himself. Whatever lay ahead, he knew he could not turn back now. He would read every page, uncover every secret, and face the truth Claire had hidden, even if it meant losing her all over again. The dagger of Claire's confession cut deepest when he read the date, July 19th. The ink was smeared, as though she'd wept over this passage. "He's coming back," she wrote, voice trembling through the script's jagged edges. "I'm not sure what to do." Ethan's blood went cold. He pressed a finger to the blotch, once, twice, wanting to feel warmth, some sign that Claire still lived beyond these pages. But the stain was as cold and final as her absence. "Who is coming back?" he whispered to the gloom, and the walls below responded with silence. He flicked the page. The next entry began. "June 10th. I sold the house." His heart clenched. He had returned here expecting to close a chapter. Instead, he found Claire drafting an ending he'd never witnessed. Every memory of signing papers, every weekend she'd spent away, every word he'd offered in reassurance, it all felt like a lie. Images of her leaving town resurfaced. Claire behind the wheel of their old Jeep, the sunrise blazing on her determined face. He'd waved her off with a casual, "Be safe," never knowing she would drive here, there, everywhere, running from something he couldn't name. Another tear-shaped blot marked the next date, August 2nd. "I met him today," she wrote, "and now I'm terrified." The margins were littered with unanswered questions, as if Claire herself had circled the words and stepped back, uncertain. Ethan slammed the journal shut and exhaled in a shuddering rush. His mind raced through every conversation they'd ever had, the polite discussions of groceries, the whispered, "I love you," before sleep, the gentle arguments about his stubborn refusal to question her when she asked for space. He realized now that distance had metastasized between them, a gulf carved by secrets she never dared to reveal. He forced himself to reopen the journal. The next line was brief but brutal. "If anything happens to me, Ethan must know the truth about our son." Their son. His voice caught in his throat. He had no son. No child had ever joined their quiet life. The candle flickered, and Ethan felt the basement shift around him, as though the walls themselves recoiled from the weight of Claire's final message. He leaned forward, eyes scanning the page, heart pounding like the storm clouds gathering above the cliffs. Whatever lay ahead, he was now certain. This journal would lead him to a secret that would shatter everything he'd ever believed about Claire, about their marriage, and about himself. And he had to follow it, no matter where it led. Ethan's breath caught in his throat the moment he read the next line, 3 words scrawled in hurried ink that felt like a hammer blow. His name's Daniel. The basement's stale air tightened around him. Daniel, a name he'd never heard, a life he'd never known. He dropped the journal onto his lap and pressed a trembling finger against the page, as if he could erase those letters and make the nightmare dissolve. But the words were etched too deep. Claire's handwriting twisted beside the name. Born September 2nd, 2005. He's 16 now. Please, find him before it's too late. Ethan's vision swam. 16. He'd married Claire in 2003. They were childless by choice, or so he believed. Every tender moment, every photograph of him cradling a baby was gone from their albums. He'd never questioned the empty frames. A faint clang echoed upstairs, the old doorknob rattling in the wind. Ethan startled, heart pounding like the breakers outside. He glanced at the single sheet of paper pressed between the journal's pages. An address in Portland, Maine, and a phone number smudged by tears. His mind raced back to Claire's final nights, her restless pacing, the whispered phone calls he never pried into. A mother's instinct hidden in plain sight, a secret life he never glimpsed. He could feel the gravity of her love reaching from beyond the grave, urging him onward. Ethan pushed himself upright, the journal gripped in one hand, the address in the other. Every step felt weighted, as though he was walking through water. He knew the road to redemption and to his son would be long and treacherous. But Claire's plea burned in his chest. Find him before it's too late. He blew out the candle, plunging the basement into darkness. Only the pale dawn light filtered down the stairs, illuminating the worn leather cover one last time. Clutching it like a lifeline, Ethan climbed to the main floor. Outside, the wind whipped the curtains, carrying the distant roar of the Atlantic. Somewhere in Portland, 16 years of secrets waited for him to uncover. He paused at the threshold, steeling himself against the unknown. Then, with a resolve forged in grief and love, he stepped into the new day, on a journey to find the sun he never knew existed. Sunlight glinted off the windshield as Ethan merged onto Route 1, the journal tucked beneath his arm like a sacred relic. Every mile brought echoes of Claire's voice, her whispered pleas, the tremor in her final entries. The salt-thick breeze whipping through the open window carried him forward, every wave of air reminding him of all the moments he'd missed. Traffic thinned as he neared the city, the sprawl of Portland rising from the coastal haze in salt-stained brick and weathered clapboard. His fingers tightened around the steering wheel. 16 years of silence lay between him and the boy, whose name he didn't even know until yesterday. Daniel, his own flesh and blood. The address led him to a narrow street shaded by maple trees. He parked beside a faded lamppost and stood, blinking against the glare. The building before him was an unassuming 3-story walk-up, its front steps cracked and overgrown. A single potted fern drooped beside the door. Claire must have chosen this place carefully, hidden, modest, far from prying eyes. Ethan's heartbeat sounded in his ears as he climbed the stairs, each step a countdown to the reunion he'd only just dared to imagine. At the second-floor landing, he paused, fingertips grazing the brass apartment number. He pictured Claire's handwriting here, the looping letters, the hurried scrawl. What had she felt as she pressed these walls around her secret? He knocked once, twice, no answer. Inside, he could hear movement, a faint shuffle, a door creaking. A woman's voice, low and cautious. "Hello? I'm Ethan Carter," he said, voice cracking. "I've come because Claire asked me to find her son, Daniel." Silence. Then the door cracked open. A pair of curious green eyes studied him. The woman held a cracked teacup, steam curling upward as if to soften the moment. "Claire's journal?" she asked softly. Ethan lifted the leather book. "It's real," he whispered. She stepped aside, motioning him in. Beside a small wooden table, a framed photograph of a boy, dark hair, the same haunted eyes, stood proudly. His heart stuttered. "Is this—" he began. "Daniel, yes," she said, voice catching. "Come in. You have a lot to learn." As the door closed behind him, the morning light dimmed, and Ethan realized that the journey was only beginning. In that humble apartment, Claire's secrets, and her son, awaited, ready to change everything once more. The scent of chamomile and old books enveloped Ethan the moment he stepped inside. The apartment was spare, but lived in, a threadbare rug, walls lined with mismatched bookshelves, and sunlight filtering through gauzy curtains. Daniel's photo sat beside a chipped pottery bowl. Worry lines etched on his small face as if he'd carried burdens he didn't belong to. His gaze lifted to the woman who'd let him in. "I'm Mara," she said quietly, closing the door. Her dark hair was pulled back, and her eyes held a wary kindness. "Claire was a dear friend. She trusted you, even when she couldn't trust herself." Ethan swallowed, heart pounding. "I know I failed her. I never knew." Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. "She needed you to know the truth. I kept the journal safe. Claire was afraid someone would destroy it. She handed the leather-bound book back to him. She wrote of love and regret, and of a boy she hoped would find his father. He opened the journal to the final entry. The handwriting was hurried, lines overlapping. Tomorrow I'll meet him at the pier. I'll give him the letter. Then I'll leave and find you, Daniel. Please believe me when you read this. I love you both. Ethan's chest tightened. She left him a letter? Mara nodded and stepped toward a small desk. Here. She retrieved an envelope from a drawer, yellowed with age and sealed with burgundy wax, imprinted with a single wave. She never delivered it. She was afraid of what might happen if Daniel read it. His fingers trembled as he broke the seal. Inside lay a single sheet of Claire's elegant script. My dearest Daniel, if you're reading this, it means I wasn't brave enough to speak these words to your face. You are the greatest gift I ever received, a piece of my soul turned into flesh and bone. Your father and I loved you more than life itself. I'm so sorry I couldn't stay. But I need him to know you, to guide you, and to make up for my mistakes. Please, Ethan, forgive me and forgive yourself for not seeing me sooner. Love, always, Mom. Ethan closed his eyes, the words echoing in his mind. Guilt and wonder collided. This boy, his son, had grown without him, carrying a mother's unspoken love. He turned to Mara. Where is Daniel now? Her gaze softened. He's with friends down at the marina. He didn't want to meet you until he understood why. Ethan nodded, bracing himself. Then I'll meet him there. It's time I proved I deserved to be his father. Leaving the apartment, journal and letter in hand, Ethan walked into the afternoon light, each step guiding him closer to a truth that would reshape their lives. And finally, to the son he was ready to know. A gray haze clung to the marina as Ethan stepped onto the weathered dock, the scent of diesel and salt spray sharp in his nostrils. Lines of fishing boats bobbed gently, their nets piled high and creaking with the evening wind. He clutched Claire's letter and the journal like talismans, each step echoing on the planks beneath his boots. At the far end, a group of teenagers leaned against a lobster trap, laughing, tossing a baseball back and forth. One of them stood out, tall and lean, dark hair curling around a face too mature for its years. When Daniel spotted Ethan, his throw faltered, the ball dropping into the water with a soft splash. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He swallowed, lifting his chin as he approached. The others backed away, telling themselves to give the boy the space he needed. Daniel? Ethan's voice was a rough whisper, carried on the sea breeze. The boy's green eyes narrowed, wary but curious. You must be him, Daniel said, voice low. The guy in the pages. Ethan halted a few feet away, careful not to crowd him. I'm Ethan Carter, Claire's husband, your father. Daniel's gaze flicked to the journal, then to the letter in Ethan's hand. I know what she wrote. He sounded older than 16, guarded, controlled. I read it after she was gone. A wave of guilt ripped through Ethan. I'm so sorry, son. I should have been there for you. Daniel's jaw clenched. You weren't. He looked away toward the horizon where the sun dipped below a riot of orange clouds. You left. You taught literature. She raised me alone. Ethan's throat tightened. Claire begged me to find you. I lost her, and it nearly cost me you. Daniel's eyes glistened. Why now? Why me? Ethan exhaled, folding Claire's letter and placing it gently in Daniel's hands. Because I want to know you. Because I love you, as she did. Daniel's fingers trembled around the fragile paper. His guard wavered for a heartbeat, and Ethan saw a flicker of the boy beneath the armor. Vulnerable, longing. The sun sank fully beyond the waterline. In that soft twilight, father and son stood, the gulf of 16 years between them momentarily bridged by Claire's final gift, and the promise of what might come. The moment Daniel tucked Claire's letter into his jacket pocket, the air around them shifted, charged, electric. Ethan's heart pounded as he waited for the boy's response, every second stretching into eternity. Daniel glanced at the horizon, the last light of sunset painting the sky in bruised purples and golds. "You want to know about me?" he asked quietly, arms folded across his chest. "There's not much to tell." Ethan lifted his chin. "Tell me what you want me to know." Daniel's eyes flickered with something like defiance and pain. He kicked at a loose plank, sending up a small spray of wood splinters. "I'm not like you," he said. "I'm not an English professor who can quote Shakespeare in his sleep." Ethan gave a small, rueful smile. "Good. I'd like to learn your language instead." For a moment, Daniel said nothing. Then he shrugged, a small, wounded gesture. "I work on these boats. I'm up before dawn, hauling traps. I fix engines. Claire taught me that. She said I had her stubborn streak." Ethan listened, absorbing every word. He imagined Claire standing here, watching her son grow strong and capable, her pride mingled with fear that he'd inherit her secrets. "She was so proud of you," he murmured. "Every time I saw her, she'd light up talking about your latest project." Daniel's gaze met his. "You heard her talk about me?" Ethan nodded. "More than you know." Daniel turned back to the water, wavering between anger and longing. "Then why didn't you come sooner?" Ethan hesitated. "I was afraid of what you might think of me, or of losing you if I tried." Silence fell again, broken only by the gentle lap of waves. Finally, Daniel reached into his pocket and withdrew the letter. He held it out to Ethan. "This is yours now." Ethan took it gently. "No," he said softly. "It's ours." As twilight deepened, father and son stood side by side on the dock, two lives converging at last. Beneath the watchful eyes of the ocean, they faced the long road ahead, where forgiveness, discovery, and a mother's enduring love would guide them through the darkness. And somewhere in that gathering night, Claire's voice whispered on the wind, urging them onward. The wind gusted across the dock as night settled in, carrying a chill that seeped through Ethan's jacket. He stared at the dark water, its surface fractured by ripples of moonlight. Behind him, Daniel shifted, boots scraping wood. "Want to see where Claire and I used to fish?" Daniel's voice was hesitant, almost shy. He glanced at Ethan, waiting. Ethan nodded, heart fluttering. "I'd like that." They climbed into Daniel's beat-up rowboat, its oars worn smooth by years of use. Daniel pushed off the dock, and they slid into the mirrored calm of the harbor. The only sounds were the soft splash of oars and the distant hum of a lone fishing buoy. Ethan watched Daniel's strong arms pull the oars, each stroke sure and steady. In the boat's dim lantern glow, he saw the boy's profile. Determined, proud, and haunted by shadows Ethan knew all too well. Daniel broke the silence. "Claire taught me everything I know out here. She said the sea can tell you who you are, if you learn to listen." He dipped an oar, water dripping in slow, glimmering beads. Ethan swallowed. "I never listened to her when she needed me." His voice cracked. "But I'm listening now." Daniel paused, letting the boat drift. He looked up at the star-flecked sky. "She loved you," he said quietly. "Even when she lied." Ethan's breath caught. "I know. I've read every word she wrote." Daniel's gaze met his, fierce and unguarded. "Then you know why she lied. She was protecting me." Ethan studied the boy's face, tracing the echoes of Claire's smile in his expression. "Tell me how I can help," he said. Daniel exhaled, the tension in his shoulders easing. "Stay," he whispered. "Don't leave." Ethan's eyes stung with tears he refused to shed. He reached out, placing a tentative hand on Daniel's shoulder. "I'm here," he promised. "I'm not going anywhere." As the oars rested at their sides, the boat rocked gently beneath a sky alive with stars. In that hush, father and son found a fragile peace, bound by Claire's final wish, and the unspoken hope that together they could chart a new course toward healing. But on the horizon, a lone light flickered, a distant lighthouse guiding them into unknown waters where tomorrow's secrets awaited discovery. Dawn bled pink across the horizon as Ethan and Daniel rowed back toward the dock, the world bathed in quiet possibility. The earlier tension had softened into something neither had names for yet, hope, perhaps, or the fragile beginnings of trust. When their boat scraped the weathered wood, Daniel leapt out first, solid and sure, then offered his hand to Ethan. Surprised by the gesture, Ethan accepted it, and Daniel hauled him upright, their palms warm in the cool morning air. "I want to show you something," Daniel said, his voice steady. He led Ethan past the marina's sleepy shops to a small, overgrown path leading up the bluff. At its peak stood an iron bench overlooking the sea, Claire's favorite spot. The bench was worn, its paint peeling, but etched into the backrest was her handwriting. "For all the tales yet to come." Ethan traced the words, heart tightening. "She spent hours here," Daniel explained, "planning our future. She dreamed of teaching me poetry, of us writing stories together." His voice caught. "I kept this place just for her." Ethan swallowed, pulling Claire's journal from his coat. He handed it to Daniel. "This is yours now," he said softly. "Your story and mine." Daniel opened the cover, fingers brushing the first page. Then he looked up, eyes glistening. "Write with me," he whispered. "Let's fill the next pages." Tears pricked Ethan's eyes as he nodded. Together they sat on the bench, father and son, and, with the journal open between them, began to share memories. Claire's laughter caught in the crash of waves, the way her fingertips trembled when she wrote her secrets, the moment a man and a boy found each other at last. In that sunrise glow they penned a new chapter, one born of loss, but guided by love. And as the sea roared its approval below, Ethan understood that while some stories end in sorrow, the greatest tales are those we choose to continue together.